A woman is facing charges in the deadly carjacking of an Uber Eats driver on the West Side. Police say she stole his car and then ran him over with it.
Another day, another story of a completely preventable homicide that happens in a left-wing area. This time it's the city of Chicago. And of course, the twist in this particular story is that the suspect, Montoya Perry, pictured right here, was smiling from ear to ear in her mugshot after she was arrested for stealing a car from an Uber Eats driver, then running over said Uber Eats driver, killing him. And then, of course, she was captured 10 hours later for this particular crime, and now finally, maybe, after all of these years, she will be held accountable to a certain degree. Now, of course, I'm not having high hopes for this accountability. In fact, there was an infamous caught-on-video Uber Eats carjacking that happened in the District of Columbia, where they ended up killing the driver of that particular vehicle, and those teens, those youths in that particular case, were not held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. And since Montoya Perry has been cut break after break after break for well over a decade in the city of Chicago, we should not be surprised if somehow, magically, these charges end up getting reduced, because that's what happened to her for her whole life, and in fact happened to her as recently as 2 weeks prior to this crime. And this is what we're going to talk about today, because here you have an unrepentant, absolute monster who killed an individual for a car, for a joyride, for her fun, for her entertainment, and now we're supposed to pretend like this was completely unpreventable. Who could imagine such a crime like this would happen, as if this woman doesn't have a history of these exact same crimes, putting people in danger, doing this over and over again, and she shouldn't have been removed from the streets nearly 15 years prior to this incident. And this is what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
Chicago police tell us she is now charged with murder and vehicular hijacking in the death of 28-year-old Daniel Figueroa.
So the local news informs us that this woman, Montoya Perry, has been charged with vehicular hijacking, which I'm assuming is just the state of Illinois' version of carjacking, what they define it as according to their laws. And in addition to that, she has been charged with the homicide in this particular case. I believe it's felony murder, since it's a death as a result of the felony that she was committing of the 28-year-old Uber Eats driver, who, by the way, was delivering food at 2 o'clock in the morning to workers at a hospital who were probably treating gunshot victims of other Chicago criminality committed by repeat offenders, when this woman decided to target him, deprive him of his livelihood, his vehicle, on this cold Chicago night, and he ended up seeing it, so she, of course, decided to run him over because she needed that car. And, of course, if we had Jessica Burbank here, we would probably hear about how she was only stealing the car because used cars have gotten so expensive over the past couple of years that she needed it to go to the grocery store in order to get groceries.
Why are we seeing an increase in carjackings? I mean, we saw an increase in the price of used cars and trucks go up by 40%. That's a very high number. I think people are really struggling to afford cars, and it's really sad because you see the main contributing factor of this to be markups done by dealers of 35 and 65%, and you see them raking in record profits. So as the price goes up, their profits go up as well. They're not just accounting for, an incurrence of production cost. They're just raising the price as a part of their regular dealership markup, and people are really struggling. They need cars to go get groceries, go to work, what have you.
Now, I wish, and I mean I wish, that the problems that Perry Montoya had in her mind that led her to commit not only this crime, but crimes over the last 16 years in the city of Chicago could be solved by somebody giving her a glass of milk. But unfortunately, I live in the real world. Unfortunately, I live in reality. So I understand that when you release a violent repeat offender with a history of carjackings, it is only a matter of time before somebody gets hurt and somebody gets killed. And let us look into this woman's criminal history that the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois decided to give her a pass on multiple different times, because it dates back all the way to 2010. Montoya Perry, age 33, of Maywood, smiled widely in a police mugshot despite being charged with a violent crime. She's facing felony murder and vehicular hijacking charges for the early Monday morning attack. Perry has 8 prior felony convictions dating back to 2010, and she was out on pre-trial release for another incident which happened 2 weeks ago when the crime earlier this week occurred. So my apologies to everybody out there in the audience, because, you know, even though I cover these particular stories for a living, I present you guys this information, sometimes the baffling nature of the criminal justice system also eludes me, because I assumed that she had 8 felony arrests since 2010. In fact, she has a great number more arrests than convictions, but she actually has 8 felony convictions. 8 times this woman was convicted of felonies, and by the way, included in those felonies are carjacking, aggravated assault, aggravated robbery, and by the way, when something's aggravated, that means you're using a weapon or you're using some level of force in order to engage in those crimes. And of course, she was arrested not 2 weeks ago and released pre-trial release, innocent Bubba Angel. Oh my god, what a sad sack. How bad would it be for our society if we held Montoya Perry pre-trial based on her 8 felony convictions, maybe considered her a habitual offender when she committed this particular crime? How many chances do you get in our society? How many times are they going to let you go? Quite literally, the answer is until you kill somebody, and sometimes even after you kill someone. She has a history of aggravated robberies, carjackings, fleeing from the police, and lying to the police. A judge ordered Perry, who entered a hearing on crutches, detained pending trial. Quote, "It was important you be here because Daniel didn't deserve this. You know, even though they have one person in custody, you know, we still need justice to be served," said his girlfriend Sandra Guerrero. The victim's family was very emotional while in court on Monday. Quote, "I'm pretty numb still. I can be angry, I can be hurt, but that's not going to bring my son back. I'm going to let justice take its place," Mother Eleanor Rivera said. "I'm happy in my heart she's being detained and the case is moving forward. There's no doubt in my mind she did it, and she did it with the intent to hurt and left my son there to die." Now, as if Montoya Perry wasn't ghetto trash enough based on her 8 prior felony convictions, her family actually had the nerve, the audacity, in the courtroom for this woman who should have been locked away in prison a long time ago to get into a fight with the Rivera family. The victim's family, you know, the man that she hit while he was working, something that Montoya Perry has probably never experienced in her entire life, and left for dead on the street, and then he ultimately did die. Well, guess what? The Perry family didn't like how upset they were, so they got into an altercation in the courtroom. Again, ghetto trash through and through. Throw them all in prison, in my humble opinion, because they absolutely 100% deserve it. And again, this image of Montoya Perry smiling from ear to ear in her mugshot should haunt them as a family. They should all be named and shamed for the rest of their days. For generations, they should know that they were connected to this woman. So according to the report, the 28-year-old had just dropped off his final order of the night at Loretto Hospital when 3 people allegedly tried to steal his minivan. Investigators said Perry was behind the wheel when Figueroa tried to stop her from driving off, and he ended up being dragged half a block before being run over with his own vehicle. Chicago police said the Downers Grove native died after being found around 2 a.m. that same morning, lying unresponsive on West Flounroy Street on the city's west side. Prosecutors say a doctor at the hospital was supposed to receive the food, but became suspicious after not getting any updates. They say he made his way outside where Figueroa was found lying in a pool of blood. He died shortly after. Now look, obviously this is an incredibly tragic story, and the fact that this happened so close to the hospital and nobody even bothered to call it in after he was run over because they showed a willful disregard for this man's life is absolutely shameful. But in addition to that, they're also looking for the 2 accomplices. So again, if any description or anything like that comes out, I will be sure to bring it to you guys in an update video so everybody involved can be held to account. But Montoya Perry appears to be the alleged driver and thus the killer at this moment in time. Now, in addition to that, the girlfriend of the victim actually has a GoFundMe. At the time of this article being written, it's at about $12,000. This is intended to cover the costs of the funeral. That will be linked in the description of this video. It will be labeled GoFundMe, so you guys can find it if you choose to contribute. But again, what we have right here is a complete and utter failure of the criminal justice system. And of course, we have of regular, ordinary working people who are not working the best jobs. I mean, Uber Eats is not the greatest thing that you can do. And of course, the girlfriend works at Amazon, and yet now their lives are completely ruined due to the fact that this absolute monster was never put in prison where she belonged. And by the way, don't think I didn't notice that she has 8 felony convictions dating back to 2010, and she's 33 years old. That means that this woman has been committing crimes and offending since she was 15. Since she was 15 years old, she's been getting chance after chance after chance by our society. She's been getting multiple different breaks. Everybody said that she was an innocent Bubba Angel Aladdin, and the fact is, she likely committed many more crimes, many more robberies, many more acts of thuggery over the course of those years beyond the 8 felony convictions that she actually received. And guys, from the reports, the victim was driving a minivan, not exactly the most pricey, expensive vehicle. Again, just something that he needed to actually maintain his family life and, of course, do his work. And they were stealing this likely for fun, likely to get whatever valuables that were inside. And what's even more outrageous about all of this is the fact that, of course, Montoya Perry understands how to play the innocent Beba Angel black woman victim, because she actually showed up in court in crutches, feigning some kind of injury because, oh my god, she's the real victim in this. Now, of course, when she was arrested, you saw her smile. You saw how happy she was. You saw how proud of her own actions she was, and you could see on her face that she feels like she is untouchable, that she'll never be held accountable in a court of law. And the reason she feels that way is that everything over the last 16 years has showed her exactly that. Now, of course, I praise the new Cook County District Attorney for being significantly better than the previous state's attorney, but the fact is, 2 weeks ago, this woman was arrested. She could have been held pre-trial based on her history of violent offenses and repeat offending. And by the way, we're talking 8 felony convictions, not 8 felony arrests, probably many, many more arrests for this particular woman, but they released her anyway back onto the streets. And 2 weeks later, a 28-year-old man is dead. His family's absolutely devastated. His girlfriend is reeling. And this is the result of soft on crime policies. You had every opportunity to stop this woman. You had every opportunity to get her off the streets. You had every opportunity to make sure that this didn't happen, but they chose to do otherwise. And by the way, we all know once those other 2 individuals end up getting caught, once they get arrested, if that actually does happen, that they're also going to have a rap sheet that's a mile long of also crimes that are probably closely related that were ignored. And despite the fact that this pattern happens over and over again, we almost never, and I mean absolutely ever, see the appropriate response, the appropriate change in policy to make sure something like this never happens again. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about a Chicago murderer smiling ear to ear. Till next time.